Hi guys, I have something to confess to you all. I've actually been two people. Two people have been King Noosme this whole time. Actually, I lied. There's three of us. There's three people that have been King Noosme this whole time. Actually, that's also a lie. There's four of us. There's four people that are King Noosme.
A few moments later.
Actually, that's actually a lie. There's 15 of us. There's 15 people being King Noosme, and I can still only put out one video a week. Hi everybody, my name's King Noosme. We are back today talking about one of my new favorite TV shows, Tales from the Crypt. I asked you guys which episode you would like for me to talk about, and Split Personality won, beating out Death of Some Salesmen. It was really like the battle of Curry versus Pesci, and our boy Joe barely squeaked it out. Or maybe it was because there was girls in bikinis in the picture for the episode. I know what you are. But a quick explanation for people who don't know what Tales from the Crypt is. Tales from the Crypt is an anthology horror series that was created by William Gaines and Stephen Dodd that aired on HBO. Each episode was based on various horror comics from the publishing company EC, like Vault of Horror and Tales from the Crypt, of course. There are also a few movies that are directly connected to the show and two that were made before the show but are somewhat spiritual predecessors for the show. Today we're taking a look at the 12th episode of the 4th season, Split Personality, a fan favorite of the show because of the surreal comedy, entertaining story, and of course the wonderful performance from the famous Joe Pesci. Season 4 really went hard on their celebrity performances. That season has Tom Hanks, Christopher Reeves, Robert Patrick, Brad Pitt, and a ton more. They really had some motion back then. But anyways, if you somehow don't know who Joe Pesci is, he's been in a ton of award-winning movies like Goodfellas, My Cousin Vinny, Raging Bull, and of course his most famous movie, Home Alone. And he really elevates this episode with his quick, witty humor and that amazing Italian accent.
You make blackjack on the next card, the house pays 5-1. You're rich, Ace.
The episode was directed by Joel Silver, and this was actually his first and only time directing anything. Joel was usually a producer. He actually helped produce most of Tales from the Crypt. The episode was written by Fred Decker, who wrote the episode And All Through the House, which I've talked about on the channel. The episode is based off of a comic with the same name in the 30th issue of The Vault of Horror. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll go through the comic and compare it to the episode. But that's enough yapping, let's get into the episode. The episode starts with the Cryptkeeper counting eyeballs as he uses one too many alliterations for my feeble mind to comprehend.
Tonight's coffin caper is so crammed with ghastly greed, sickening sex, and vomitous violence.
He just warns the audience that this episode's gonna get a little wild, so we're gonna need some parental guidance.
So, guide your parents out of the room so we can have some fun.
Or that too. No, but seriously, this episode shows some boob and blood, and Overlord YouTube doesn't really like that, so I'm gonna have to blur some stuff in this video. And if you wanna see all the violence, it'll be uncensored on my Patreon and members video. Then he introduces us to the episode by saying this tale follows a gambling man with double vision who's about to hit the jackpot.
I call this twin helping of horror split personality.
The story starts with this poor guy who doesn't really understand how the casino works. He's playing blackjack and bets a ton of these green chips, which he thought were $5 each, but really they're $50 each. So if he loses, he actually cannot pay the casino back, which is a big issue. But our main character Vic Stetson's gambling spidey senses start tingling, and he decides to eavesdrop on the conversation. The gambler begs the dealer to let him just change his bet to $5, but the deal is already on the table and locked in, so he can't really do anything. And with nothing left to lose and only 10 showing, the gambler decides to take another hit, which gives him 19, which is not bad, but not good enough to possibly win. It's too risky to hit again, so he tries to tell the dealer a sob story about one of his kids who can't take care of himself and now he has a kidney thing, and they can't pay for it because his insurance sucks and he had an issue while he was fighting in Vietnam. Right. And I have 3 broken ribs and a pie in the oven. Oh shit. Vic decides to give the gambler some confidence. Even though the deal is very risky, if he wins, the house pays him 5-1. So he will be instantly rich and have to pay for nothing for the rest of his life. That's pretty much the equivalent of showing anybody this image nowadays. But Vic makes the gambler's odds a bit better by bribing the dealer with this Benjamin. And oh, would you look at that? It's exactly what he needed to win. The gambler, who we learn is named Don, is so thankful that he tries to give Vic a cut of the money. But Vic is a nice guy, right? So he doesn't take the money. He tells him to go use all the money to save his kid. Right. He tells Don that 2 is his lucky number.
Double your pleasure, 2 heads are better than 1, all that shit. The best things in life come in twos. You understand what I'm saying?
And then he straight up scams poor Don, saying that he knows a way to double his money. All he has to do is write him a check with his name and address on it, and they'll both be rich. And the poor guy falls for it. Vic walks out of the casino with a stupid amount of money, and poor Don won't be able to pay for his son's surgery. If his son is even sick, or if he even has a son. But before we move on, you'll probably recognize Don because he's played by Burt Young, another famous actor that you probably know as Paulie in the Rocky movies. We'll cut to a little later and Vic is laying in bed with a prostitute, but I don't think he paid her to do anything with him. He just wanted someone to talk to. Apparently Vic is a well-known con man and is actually on the run from the feds, but he's just waiting for the day when he gets the one big break, the big con, where he can just disappear and never has to con anyone ever again. He can buy a house and get married, live the life everyone wishes they can live. And then he strangely moves on to his fetish with twins. He says it started when he first watched The Parent Trap. No, not that one. Not that Parent Trap. This Parent Trap. He was a kid when it came out, and in his words,
I used to pop a Woody every time I saw those two do a scene together.
ew, bro, TMI. And then he confesses that he's always wanted to do it with twins. Then we fade into some time later, and Vic is riding around in his new convertible BMW. Wonder how he could afford that. Sadly, he almost crashes it trying to avoid these two cats who are playing in the road. The little accident causes one of his tires to pop, so he heads to this odd-looking house to ask for help.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Oh, by the way, there's a meme in this episode. I'm honestly shocked there aren't more memes from this episode. Joe Pesci is so funny in this. Vic makes his way up to the house and then he just kind of walks in without knocking first, and then he says hello to announce himself. Just imagine if somebody did that to you. Like imagine if a door-to-door salesman just opened your door and walked inside your house. Anyways, Vic walks around the house for a second and finds a picture of the architect and owner of the house.
What a goofy looking fuck he was.
yeah, he's kind of goofy looking. The picture is actually of Richard Donner, the famous filmmaker who made movies like Christopher Reeve's Superman, Lethal Weapon, Scrooge, and the iconic Twilight Zone episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. He even directed some episodes for this show.
Don't move!
You got it! Vic is held at gunpoint by a girl who looks like she hasn't seen the sun in months. She demands he tell her how he got into the house. I mean, there wasn't the best security system. You had an open gate and an open door. You're kind of asking to get robbed at that point. Vic tells the girl that he was in an accident down the road and he just wants to use their phone to call a tow truck. But Vic must be seeing double because he spots another pale girl coming out from the shadows. While still holding him at gunpoint, the girls introduce themselves as April and June.
What happened to May?
Why are you introducing yourself to a random dude that broke into your house? That's really dumb. April continues to hold Vic at gunpoint as he calls up a tow truck. And he talks about how much he admires their dad's work as an architect, even though just 2 seconds ago he said,
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
oh, right, con man, duh. He continues to spit out a bunch of bullshit about how great their father was to butter them up in hopes that they talk to him for a bit longer, and it actually kind of works. They sit Vic down and give him some water, and they tell him that they don't really have very many visitors. Just the occasional magazine asking about their father and people who would like to take advantage of them because they're worth $2 billion. And you know Vic likes to hear that. It gets him so excited that he breaks the fourth wall. Obviously, Vic views this as the big con he's been dreaming of. The girls are worth $2 billion and they're twins? Bro hit the jackpot. Sadly, the tow truck arrives as Vic was just getting started with the girls. And as he says his goodbyes to them, they ask him to come back. And you bet your crypt-loving ass he comes back to rizz up the girls some more. Also, strangely, we cut back to Vic with the prostitute and he's telling her about the girls. So this couldn't have happened before he met them, but knowing how this episode ends, it definitely didn't happen afterwards. So he cheated on the girls with the prostitute. Why? Bro is literally living his dream and he still cheated. Men, am I right, ladies? Vicky gets to work and successfully charms both of the girls and actually helps them come out of their shells a little bit. They love him and they love spending time with him. They just wish that there were two of him so they could both have one. Then Vic manages to get both of them alone at different times, where they both tell him bits about their life with their dad. They both loved him so much that they fought over him, but now that he's dead, they only have each other. And now they're so close that they don't hide anything from each other and they share everything 50-50. Then they both bring up their sister's dark side, but play it off like everyone has a dark side, so it's not that big of a deal. But they really don't like being messed with, and if someone wrongs them, then they snap, almost like they have a split personality. Vic kind of ignores all the creepy split personality stuff because he just has one mission: to get on the girl's good side. And that he does. He tells both of the girls at separate times that he prefers the girl he's talking to over their sister. But it's all just a ruse to see if his bait has been working. And it has. And it's also a way to get in their pants. But now that Vic knows that they both love him, he knows that he could ask either one to marry him and they would in a second. But if he asks just one to marry him, then he would only get $1 billion. If he could get both to marry him, then he would have $2 billion.
And the only way I could do that is if there were two of me.
So he makes up this lie about having a twin brother named Jack who lives and works in South Africa. He says that they have a business there and they swap out each month to keep things fair, and business causes one of them to be there at all times. And sadly, Vic has to go for a month, but Jack will come keep the girls company if they want him to. He does warn the girls that he and his brother are nothing alike. Jack isn't as smart as Vic. He's over the top and speaks like a Californian surfer. Then we finally meet this Jack character, and it's pretty obvious that it's just Vic in a costume and a fake ponytail. And as for that accent he was talking about,
Whoa, ladies. Vic told me you were a couple of radical babes. But I must confess to being totally stoked and overwhelmed.
sounds like if an Italian mobster tried to fit in at X Games. Whoa, dude, that was a totally radical heel flip into a manual kickflip you hit there. Somehow the disguise works for long enough, and Vic marries April and Jack marries June.
Bingo.
Some time passes and Vic is trying to lay out and enjoy his new fortune. But the dang landscaper's doing his job too close to Vic's relaxing. So he yells at the gardener to put the chainsaw down for a minute and let him relax in peace. While he's relaxing, the girls watch from the balcony and talk about putting their past behind them and finally being happy. It's what their father would have wanted. And one of them wishes that they could hang out with their husbands at the same time. And they even casually mention just sharing their husbands, which is really gross. I mean, they're already doing it, but putting it out there is even weirder. As Vic relaxes and gets a little bit of a tan going, the wind blows a strap to his robe across his back, which causes him to have this weird tan line. It's so obvious that even April giggles and points it out as he's getting out of the shower. She asks him if it's possible that he would let her go with him to South Africa just once. But Vic makes up a pretty lame excuse.
I told you, it's hot, it's sticky, you'd hate it.
The next day, the girls are sitting by the pool talking about how wild their husbands are in bed. One mentions that he likes to tie her up, and the other girl says her husband likes to do the same thing. But that's just a silly little coincidence that they notice. They still aren't aware that they're being duped. That is until June tells April that last night when Jack took his shirt off, she noticed that he was all tan, except for one tiny white stripe. April immediately thinks about how Vic was sunburned and his back had the exact same thing. Sure, it's normal if twins have the same kink in bed, but to have the exact same tan line? Now that's a little weird. The girls sneak into the room while Vic is showering and singing Katarina very poorly.
When we kiss, pretty miss, I'm an ecstasy.
Sounded better when you could barely hear him in the car earlier.
When we kiss, pretty miss, I'm an ecstasy.
Anyways, the girls sneak into the room to look for clues to see if Vic is pulling the wool over their eyes, and almost immediately they find a fake ponytail hidden under his clothes. Their biggest fear has come true. They were conned by the man that they truly love. The girls are so angry that they have to hyperventilate to try and calm themselves down. And then they sneak out of the room, and after Vic's shower, he shouts for the girls to get ready so he can take them out on the best feast ever. Then he spots an open drawer. This drawer the whole episode has been locked, and he casually asked about it earlier, but he really didn't get an answer for why it's locked.
Why is this stupid drawer always locked? What the hell's in it anyway?
And he's been curious about it for so long that he can't help but take a peek inside. He finds tons of newspapers about their father's death. It seems like they might have had something to do with it, but they were acquitted by a juvenile court. Vic is in disbelief and is so enthralled by the newspaper headlines that he doesn't hear the girls sneaking up behind him, which gets him pistol whipped in the back of the head. When he wakes up, he's tied to the bed, confused and scared for his life. The girls eerily say,
"Hello, darling."
And instantly Vic knows what's going on. He's about to see their dark side. He tries to convince them to not hurt him. It's not his fault that he fell in love with both of them, and he did treat them well, and he made them happy, right? I mean, that's a little bit debatable. I would say he was like mediocre husband at best, but then he moves on to their father's death. He tells them that he doesn't care if they killed him or not. They were just little girls then. They're older now, and they've changed. And he just can't keep his mouth shut about it, and the girls aren't afraid to tell him that they did do it. They killed their father. and they actually seem pretty proud of it. They tell him that they share everything, 50-50, but sharing their dad was just so hard. There was only one of him and two of them, and they're both so selfish. They both wanted him all to themselves all the time, and they feel the exact same way about Vic. Then April walks out of the room for a second and walks back in with a chainsaw,
I'm gonna let her do the honors. She was always the more outgoing of the two of us.
which she uses to cut Vic right down the middle as they both laugh maniacally and Vic cries out in pain. But now with him split in half, they can finally share Vic. April has half and June has the other. After all, they do share everything 50-50. They probably should have at least put like a tarp down or something before putting him on the bed though. I'm just saying, it's a pretty big mess. Then we fade back to our favorite little guy as he chops a heart in half. I guess to split it among the ladies. And he makes fun of Vic for being a bit too greedy.
I guess old venal Vic thought he could double his fun and his bank account. Too bad he was only half right.
Then he offers to play a game with us. But the odds aren't really that fair.
Deads I win, tails you ooze.
And that's the end of the episode. What a really, really fun episode. It's seriously probably one of the most entertaining and funny episodes in the whole series. And I really like how they made the episode. Nothing in it is really scary at all. It kind of plays like a comedy short film for a majority of it. And then in the last few minutes, things just turn up to 11 and it gets all spooky. Well, if you can even call ripping someone in half with a chainsaw spooky, but I think the lighthearted vibes throughout the episode really make the ending hit a lot harder than it would have if they tried to keep a creepy vibe going the whole time. Even the house that most of the episode is based in isn't some creepy old house. It looks like if a kid drew a house from memory. Strange colors and a strange layout. It's silly. It doesn't send a shiver down my spine, and I think it was made that way by design. It's like they tried to lull us into a false sense of security before giving us a pretty dark and brutal ending. And I seriously don't think this episode would have been as good if Joe Pesci wasn't in it. He literally carries this episode so hard. He makes all the best jokes, has some great one-liners, and he somehow makes Vic, who is a horrible person, kind of likable, or at the very least super charismatic. You can't deny that Vic is very charismatic. But they do make him do things throughout the episode to remind us that we're not supposed to like the guy. For example, when he's talking to the prostitute, she simply asks if they're gonna have sex or not, which is valid. It's kind of why she's there. But in her talking, it makes him burst into a fit of rage and he starts choking her and yelling at her.
Shut up! Shut the fuck up! I pay you to be whatever.
Or the fact that after his very minor car accident, where he really didn't collide with anything, he purposefully makes himself look more disheveled and more hurt than he is, so the girls will feel bad for him. They also do little things throughout the episode, like the sisters have a cat, and that cat hates him.
Sometimes I trust cats more than I do people.
And we all know that animals have a great sense for shitty people. All of that with his over-the-top confidence and him being super greedy, kind of festered his downfall. Honestly, if Vic just decided to marry one of the girls, he probably would have lived a rich, carefree life. I mean, $1 billion is way more than enough money to live lavishly forever. But no, he had to be all greedy and ruin it for himself with the classic Tales from the Crypt karma. I just love how Tales from the Crypt gives karma to such shitty characters in the most satisfying ways. In this case, Vic claimed that number 2 was his lucky number, and he died by being split in half, in 2 pieces. The number that is all over the episode. Dawn needed a 2 for a big win. There are 2 black cats that caused him to crash to meet the 2 girls that Vic fell in love with, the girls that are worth $2 billion, and he had to make 2 of him because he was too selfish to let anybody else in on the wealth. If only this was the 2nd episode of the 2nd season, then the whole thing would have come full circle. Honestly, I feel like if he wasn't so greedy and chose to marry just one of the girls, he would have been okay. Or the other sister would have gotten so jealous and he would have ended up dead anyways. They were always a little off. I do wish there was a bit more build up to the ending though. There is a bit of mystery surrounding the girls throughout the episode. First of all, they're already a bit creepy, especially the way they talk and finish each other's sentences. Not to mention they're ghostly pale the whole time because they don't go outside very much. Overall, they're just a little quirky, but not in a good way. And at one point in the episode, they both talk about each other's dark side, as if they have a dark passenger like Dexter or something. But we never really see or hear much about it until the very end of the episode. I think it would have been really cool if they showed us one or both of the girls cracking a little bit. Just somewhere in the episode, they get duped or they get scammed a little bit, and they just show something to give us a hint of their more homicidal tendencies. It just kind of feels like they mentioned it, and then it's like, not anything important until the very end of the episode when Vic finds out that they killed their dad. I also don't really get the prostitution scenes. I get that he has to be telling someone the story, and this chick obviously doesn't care. It's kind of just going in one ear and out of the other. Actually, she's probably not listening at all. So she's the perfect person to talk to about this because she doesn't care after they're done. She's probably gonna forget it all. But I feel like it would have been better if he was telling the dealer of the casino the story. I think that would have made more sense for his character, you know, him being a con man and a gambler. So in his downtime while he's swapping into his Jack persona, he would be hanging out at the casino for a little bit. Plus, we already see earlier that Vic and the dealer are at least buds, so why wouldn't he be telling him all this stuff? It's like just talking to a friend about life. But honestly, that's just a nitpick. It doesn't derail the episode or even make it worse in any way. It's honestly really hard to hate this episode. It's such like good vibes the whole time. It's kind of awesome. Everyone in it does an amazing job. The acting is amazing, of course. The directing is also great. I wish we got to see more of Joel Silver directing things. He absolutely killed it, especially since it was his first time ever directing. There were some pretty great cinematic shots in there, and all of the characters feel real, but also like heightened versions of people you've met in real life. And I especially love how they lighted the final scene. It gives me Creepshow vibes, and it adds so much to the scene. I love it. If you're able to watch this episode, I definitely give it a shot. You might be able to find it here on YouTube. It's an awesome episode, so much fun. You definitely won't regret watching it. Now, I mentioned earlier that this episode is based off of a comic. It's actually the first story in the Vault of Horror's 30th issue, and it's not told by the Cryptkeeper, but the Vault Keeper. And yes, there's a difference. See? But I do quickly want to break down the comic and compare it to the episode, so let's hop to it. The story starts with an introduction from the Vault Keeper introducing us with, damn! That's a long intro! What is this, a Simply Callin' video? It starts by introducing us to Ed King. He is somehow a worse scammer than Vic. He uses a fake charity to line his pockets full of generous people's cash. He doesn't just sit around and wait for people to give him money, though. He does go door to door to con people to their face. That is until he came across the Blair sisters. While going door to door, he came across their house and knocked on the door for a while, but he didn't get an answer. Luckily, the mailman came up and told him that the Blair sisters live there and they aren't going to open the door for anyone except for their reverend. He also leaks to Ed that the girls are loaded, but they're recluses, so no one is ever going to see that money. Ed is pretty disappointed that he's going to miss out on possibly his biggest con yet. That is until he hears a blood-curdling scream coming from one of the windows. A beautiful young girl is leaning out of the window screaming because her cat is stuck on one of the branches of a tree. And with some bombastic theatrics, he saves the cat from the branch. Come here, you mangy cat, or I'll wring your neck. He fights with the cat for a while, but he eventually manages to get the cat down and get the girls to answer the door. They are so thankful to him that they actually let Ed inside their house for a minute. And a minute turned into several hours. We learned that their names are Susan and Amy, and they share an incredible amount of money, 50-50. Ed knows that this is his only chance to get rich, so he entertains them by telling them false stories of him making him seem like a big hero. Luckily for him, the girls enjoyed his company so much that they invite him back. And right after he leaves for the first time, the girls confess to each other that they think he's wonderful and they both fell in love with him. I guess if you're stuck inside for many years, you'd probably fall in love with the first person you saw as well. After a few days, Ed is pretty confident that he could marry either one of the girls if he just asked for their hand. But if only there were two of him, then he could marry both. So he makes up a story that he has a twin brother and they both work in South Africa and they have to swap monthly because business causes at least one of them to be there at all times. Sounds a little familiar, right? Yeah. But the girls don't need to worry because he can send his brother over to come check on them if they'd like. Which they don't mind, of course. So he goes out and buys a whole new wardrobe and suitcases, and he even hops in a tanning bed to make himself look more tan, because he's been in South Africa. The girls meet Alfonso, and unsurprisingly, they really like him as well. They also notice that with Ed and Alfonso, each of them have a man to marry. And it doesn't take long for Ed to propose and marry both of the sisters. And they both experience marital bliss. They are so happy for the first time in forever. But they just wish that they were able to see their husbands and hang out with them at the same time. And Ed is ecstatic. He finally pulled off the best con ever. He never has to work again. He's married to two beautiful girls. He just has to keep up this twin brother act for the rest of his life. Shouldn't be too hard. And for a few months, it went well. He even convinced the girls that they need a sun lamp so that they can keep a tan to not get burned in South Africa. In reality, it's just to keep up his little scam. But sadly for him, during one of his sun lamp sessions, he fell asleep and a gust of wind blew the sash from his robe over his back, leaving a weird tan line across his back. One so weird that both of the women spotted it immediately. The next day, they're talking about their husbands, and one of the sisters mentions the strange tan line on his back, and the other one mentions that her husband has the same thing on his back. And then they laugh the coincidence off until they realize what's happening. They start to think maybe they have the same husband, but there's just no way that Ed would lie to them like that, so they decide to test it before they just attack him. And the night just before Alfonso is set to leave for South Africa, Susan waited until he was deeply asleep and dripped a few drops of bleach on the back of his head, causing his hair to turn white and he wouldn't notice. Then they waited for Ed to come back home, and to their horror, Ed has the same patch of white hair. Their theory was true, and the fact that they were duped so bad really angers the girls. Angers them so bad that they decide that they have to get revenge. They tie him down and use an axe to chop Ed in half so Susan can have her half and Amy can have the other. And that's where the story ends. They were pretty faithful to the story in the episode. Besides the name changes, everything else is pretty similar. They even used the exact same lines from the story when he was explaining he has a brother to the girls in the episode. And you know I love when an episode stays really faithful to the story, but also elevates it and makes it better. And I do like that they used bleach to confirm that he was the same person. In the episode, they just found his fake hair, but honestly, Jack could have just been lying about his ponytail. Did you ever think about that? I guess they're just lucky that they were actually right. And I will say, using an axe over a chainsaw is a bit more brutal. First of all, the pain lasts a whole lot longer, and there's no way they're gonna be able to perfectly cut him in half. Somebody's getting a little bit more, I'm just saying. But that's all I've got for you today. I've got a Patreon. The $5 members get bonus content plus videos a day early, maybe some pictures of my cats, a Discord server, and your name right here on screen. Like the video if you like the video. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. I appreciate you all, and peace.